If I could, I would totally be at the Idea World this year. It is the premier global fitness convention and it's coming to Sacramento on July 17 to 19. And why would I go? Because it is the number one event in my opinion to get your technical knowledge updated with a sprinkling of business tips and motivational strategies as well, all under one roof. Now you can earn up to 20 CEC hours from internationally recognized educators, all while connecting with the industry's most passionate professionals. The Idea World Fitness and Nutrition Expo will actually run alongside the convention, and it's free and open to the public. It will feature cutting-edge gear, technology, and nutrition products from leading global brands. Don't miss this career-defining event. Register now at ideafit.com/world. When you use the code FBP25, you'll receive an exclusive discount on your full registration. Sacramento, California, July 17 to 19. You can join fitness professionals from around the world as Idea inspires the world to fitness.
Welcome to the Fitness Business Podcast with your host, Justin Tamsett. With over 30 years in the fitness industry, JT is a globally recognised authority with a mission to lower healthcare costs worldwide by getting more people moving and moving more often in quality facilities with qualified professionals. Every episode, JT digs deep with our guests to bring you insights that will help you lead, innovate, and boost your bottom line. So let's dive in. Take it away, JT.
Using AI is cheating in my job. By the time I put everything into AI, I could have just done it myself. Using AI decreases your communication skills. Do these statements sound familiar? These are just a few of the myths we are going to bust wide open in this episode of the Fitness Business Podcast. We're at the halfway mark of season 3, and this one is all about action. Our guest is out-of-industry AI expert Shama Hyder, and she brings clarity, candor, and credibility to help you embrace AI and not fear it. You're going to walk away with a practical challenge to take on. There are going to be fresh ideas for you to experiment with. And here's a hint for using AI. Open ChatGPT, drop in the show link URL, and ask it, what are the takeaways for me from Shama Hyder in episode 543 of the Fitness Business Podcast. From talk to action. This is episode 543. We love hearing from you, our listeners, and Brent from Rochester Athletic Club called us this week.
Hey, JT and team. This is Brent from the Rochester Athletic Club. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the Fitness Business Podcast. You cover a wide variety of topics that truly hit home for club operators and anyone else in the fitness industry. I value how you bring on leaders from around the world who openly share what's working for them. Just as importantly, what isn't. The real-world insights and takeaways make this podcast absolutely worth the time. Keep up the great work. You're making a difference for a lot of us out here. Thanks again.
Thanks, Brent, for your very kind words. We appreciate you too. In fact, we appreciate all of our FBP community. And I want to give a quick shout out to Marco, Jeff, Terry, Rhiannon, another Jeff, Joe, and Jennifer, who have all become FBP insiders since our last episode. They're now enjoying all the perks that come with being an insider, including access to our 2 recent online events, recordings, Lindsay Vastola on emotional intelligence, Matt Spears on financial fitness. Plus, our insiders get the exclusive access to the full and uncut interview with Dr. Patrick Porter on brain fitness. If you want to be an FBP insider, head to Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/Fitness Business Podcast. And speaking of Dr. Porter, he's back with another dose of wise words in just 10 seconds. Now, if you've only just joined us, Dr. Patrick Porter is an award-winning author, speaker, and the founder of BrainTap. He's dedicated his life to bettering 1 billion brains. And today's segment, well, I kick off with this question. How important is sleep for a healthy brain?
Think of sleep as your incubator for your superpowers. They've taken race car drivers. These are top racers. I got to measure Danica Patrick's brain. She's a kart racer. She had the highest performing brain that we had ever measured because they're moving at speeds that we can't even process. They say we can't process speeds over 180 miles an hour. They're driving 220 miles an hour, and they're taught to drive into crashes, not around them, because they get hit by debris. You drive into the crash because it's going to be gone by the time you get there. They're moving at 200 miles an hour, right? So these drivers, what they did was they had some, they kept them awake, they bothered to sleep. After 2 nights of having bad night's sleep, they were driving as if they had 2 glasses of drinks of alcohol. So, I mean, if it affects these world-class drivers, they didn't physiologically think that they were compromised. So sleep is really important. And when you sleep, there is a tip that I can give people that don't own the brain tap that want to start doing something. When you go to sleep at night, if you breathe into the count of 4, this triggers your sympathetic system. That's your fight or flight. And then breathe out to the count of 8. This exercise is the parasympathetic system. If you do that breathing for 4 or 5 minutes before you go to sleep, you're going to probably have your best night's sleep you've had in a long time because we've got to unwind the body.
How much sleep do we need?
Studies show 6.5 hours is optimal for peak performance. And so, but you need to have an hour of deep sleep and 2 hours of REM sleep, which you can measure on Whoops or Rings and different things like that, different metrics. And it's good to kind of monitor that every once in a while because you'll notice if you eat late at night, like if you eat within 4 hours of bedtime, you're going to see a mess with your HRV. And that's the measurement that they're going to use because in the HRV, you can also measure brainwave activity because your heart is actually communicating twice as much to your brain as your brain is to your heart. So your heart has all that data and they can get it through what they call the RR function of the heart. And so we know when somebody's in a deep sleep or not. That's why they can do it with the Oura Ring and the Whoops and the different metrics they have out there.
And how critical is deep sleep?
Deep sleep is critical. In all of our studies, we show an overwhelming improvement in sleep scores. In fact, if somebody's watching this and they just use the link you share and start even the trial, we've had 90% success with people who aren't sleeping well, have their best night's sleep within the first 5 nights of downloading that app. There's actually a program for that. So if they put in sleep, there's a whole protocol. They can just start listening to it for 14 days. If they don't like it, in the 13th day, just cancel. You won't be charged.
Who is Shama Hyder? Well, she was the keynote speaker at the Health and Fitness Association event in March 2025. But that's not what she's famous for. Her mission is to demystify AI for busy leaders and provide a clear, actionable playbook for creating revenue-driven, wow-worthy customer experiences without any jargon or hype. She's the founder of Zen Media, and she walks the talk. When she says she'll respond to your message on Insta or LinkedIn, she absolutely does, because that's how we got her on the show. Shama says the difference between success and stagnation comes down to how leaders leverage AI. So I start off our chat today by asking, what's the first mindset shift a leader needs to avoid falling behind?
So I think the easy one, easy and hard, both, right? Easy in theory, hard to do, is to recognize that AI is not going away anytime soon. I think, so again, very similar to when social media first came to the forefront and people said, well, this is a fad, right? Or this is gonna, like, this will blow over, it's a bubble and whatnot. No, it's not. I think it's going to continue to evolve. But now that we've stepped into it, I think, again, you think about pre-social media, post-social media. And I think we will have like a pre-AI, post-AI world and how we engage with the world. So certainly, I think if you are a gym owner in the fitness world, or anything at large, you ignore it at your own peril. So that's really the first step, is making sure that you don't go the way of, in the US, we always say Blockbuster versus Netflix, right? Which is like the ultimate. But it is a good example. And, Blockbuster continued to ignore the internet and do things sort of in, the old fashioned way. And meanwhile, Netflix came in with it was made for a internet first world. So I think you have to think about, how are you approaching your business in an AI first world?
Oh, I really like that. One thing I've heard is using AI is cheating. And is it cheating? And am I devaluing my job by the fact that I use AI, or is it actually supplementing my job?
Gosh, yeah, so if you look at the history of technology, it has only helped us get better and create more opportunities and more work, right? Frankly. And so it's kind of like saying, is the calculator cheating? So if you really think about it, there was a movement when calculators first came out. People, there were rallies by professors and teachers and mathematics and said, this is cheating. You can't use calculators. But if I ask people, like, do you think we've made more mathematical progress since we had calculators or before? I think the answer, of course, is no, we've made so much more progress post calculators. And I think we'll see very similarly here, like, we're going to do so much more with AI. So, if AI is cheating, gosh, sign me up, because if calculators were cheating, look how much progress we've made. So I do think that it's definitely the lens to which you look at it.
I love that. I can just imagine those protests. All the abacus makers would have been throwing their abacus versus calculator. That's a great analogy, though. That's fantastic and a great comparison. Now, you've worked with companies of various sizes. Can you give us a real world example where AI has improved team performance or maybe decision making that perhaps our listeners could relate to? And even if you can add in, I don't know whether you can or not, is there an ROI to that?
Oh gosh, yeah, there's so much ROI to be had here. And it's quick. I think that's the nice thing, is people don't realize how much stuff they have lying around. So I'll give you a really easy example. Like with one of our clients, there's always a disconnect at any level with most clients between sales and marketing, right? Always. There's just that. How do you bridge that gap? How do you make them work seamlessly? Well, one of the most simple ways to use AI is, and we did this with this client, is we took all their sales calls and all their sales data and we fed it into AI, and we said, here's all the sales calls from, whatever quarter. We want you to analyze patterns. We want you to find things that, objectively, right? Because that's the beauty of it. It is objective. It's looking at the data and saying, now from this, what are things that you see that constantly come up? So you have that. So it's great. It's like, man, every customer asks about XYZ. Cool. Now you take that and say, now create something that I can hand to the marketing team for what assets they should create given the top objections that you are hearing from these calls. It's just such an easy way to bridge what are you seeing from this data? Like, what are you learning? Because it can analyze so much data at once, and then being able to take that data and turn it into something really useful.
That's outstanding. And just for the logistics, like you probably had some whiz-bang software, but someone could actually just put that into ChatGPT and it could discern that, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the O3 model is excellent. In fact, it makes the O4 model look like kindergarten. So it's crazy how good these models are getting and how fast.
I think I remember you saying at HFA, because AI is machine learning, you really need to try to stick to the one AI agent that you use. If you're a ChatGPT user, just keep using that one the whole time so it learns you. Is that right? Or do you bounce around?
I mean, I personally bounce around. I think different models are good for different things. It is nice when a model gets to know you. And right now, I think ChatGPT is the winner. I think for what you're calling, it might be if you are new to AI and if you're just like, listen, I'm just trying to get my feet wet, then yes, like don't worry about figuring out all the models, pick one and really just start using it. I think that's the biggest thing, is can you build that muscle? Because for so many people, when I ask in my keynotes and I say, how many of you use ChatGPT AI? Like they'll raise their hand. Like almost everyone raises their hand. Cool. And I say, how many of you use it daily? And you find that they don't. Or, it's even the people that think that they're power users, you look at their history and it's like, this is the same stuff you could have asked Google. Like they're not doing really the things that you could do with it. And I think that's a miss.
So what do you mean by that? That was an interesting statement you there. Like you use it instead of just using Google.
Yeah. And so if you're trying to figure out, for example, hey, how many teaspoons in a tablespoon? The people are asking that to ChatGPT instead of Google. Like that's a very basic use case. I still like it. I'm glad that people are, again, turning to it and using it, but it's capable of a lot more than that. And so you really have to think about, almost thinking about what are challenges I've been trying to solve in my business. And right now there was a study released not too long ago, which looked at the number one case study, like use case of AI, and it's personal. I mean, people are using it as a therapist. People are using it as a friend. They're using it for emotional supporting to process emotions. And I think that's incredibly powerful. Imagine like every brilliant therapist, every book ever written, like AI knows all of this and it knows you and how to speak to you. And so I think there's just real power there.
Can I get you to put your marketing hat on now for me? And we know that when we're doing marketing, our goal is to build trust and credibility. So I guess there's some new rules now around influence and what we need to master. How has AI changed what builds trust and credibility for us in our brands?
Yeah, I mean, what's fascinating is I think how people are, again, going to get their information moving forward, and they already are, right? So now, I mean, we are going very much into a zero-click world, meaning people aren't going to search for 10 gyms before they decide which one they want to go to. They're going to go to AI and they're going to say, hey, I'm thinking about taking up kickboxing, recommend a gym. And based on what you have done and built your brand and how you positioned it, you will either be the thing that AI recommends or not, because they know where this person lives. And so I think that window for building your brand is also closing.
Is there things we can do on our website to help AI find us?
Sure, very much similarly the things that you do for search engines to find you, right? Easy content, it's indexable, it's crawlable. So like the good principles of SEO, search engine optimization still apply. I think thinking even about, reviews that you're getting, because AI is also learning from the internet. It is not divorced from the internet. It is where it's pulling all its data from somewhere. And also thinking about earned media, how are your PR, how are you being positioned in the community? All these things matter.
And they all lead back so that when AI is trawling the web, bang, it found you.
Yeah, and it's going to look at all these things. And then again, for more and more of us, we're not going to surf the web like we used to. I feel like that's already become a bit of a, anachronistic figure of speech to surf the web. I mean, we haven't really done that in a long time, but I think we certainly continue to go the opposite direction where it gives us the thing that we need and we're not necessarily searching for it.
I'm sure there's a lot of people listening today and wondering, all right, I'm going to start to use AI, but will I lose my personal touch? What does that high-performing human AI collaboration, if you will, look like?
Yeah, I love that. I don't think you do. In fact, I think it frees you up to be more of the human self, right? Where I think like the future is really defined by people's, like the things that we've kind of poo-pooed as soft skills become much more important. Empathy, being able to collaborate with others, being able to work with human beings and machines and have patience and all these things. I think these things actually become incredibly important as we move towards this. And so the way to think about AI is as a cognitive thought partner. What if you could have a best friend who was super intelligent in everything that you could ever want to know? What would a collaboration look like between you and with that friend? And so I think that's what AI really is starting to think about it as an extension of you, not necessarily AI can do what I can do. But I mean, it will force you to ask the tougher questions, right? And be able to think more, because if it creates the space, like let's say it takes away the busy work, but this whole time you've just been busy with busy work, all of a sudden you will now have sort of a gaping question and a chasm to figure out, well, what does meaningful work look like for me?
That's a good challenge for all of us. You talked about at HFA also how important questions are and our communication on questions. I've learned that the better the prompts that I put into AI, the better the information that gets spat out. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Prompt engineering is a whole thing, right? And again, as AI gets better, you won't have to be so good at prompting it. So I will say that, yes, your prompts matter, and asterisk, as we go further along, it probably won't, because it'll be so good at understanding the way you speak or understanding what you mean and being able to deliver to that. But yes, today as it stands, the better you can ask, the quality of your answers in general, this is true for AI and non-AI, is the quality of your questions. And so if you're asking good questions, that means you're getting good answers. And if you're asking bad questions, no amount of answers are really going to help you there. So yeah, you do need to be thinking. And this is why I said, it requires more strategic thinking, more creative thinking. It forces you to what I've been calling second level thinking. It's not just enough to do the surface level, but really sort of dig a little bit deeper.
And when we talk about that collaboration between the human and AI, one of the interesting things that my observation is, I'm not sure if you see this perhaps as blatantly as I do, because the people you talk to probably edit things, but I see cut and paste straight out of ChatGPT and the extra long hyphen with no space either side and the emojis. That tends to give away that someone's AI'd it and just cut and pasted. What's your thought around our processes there?
So I got a little bit of that, JT. You were asking, some people cut and paste things right out of ChatGPT. Not recommended. I think it depends. If you need a note to let your son's teacher know or your kid's teacher know that whatever, your daughter's teacher know that you are, they're going to be absent from class today, copy paste that from ChatGPT. Nobody cares because the point of that is to get a message across, right? They will not be in class. That's it. If you are writing an email to your boss asking for a raise, put some thought into it. So I think part of that is all communication is not equal and shouldn't be treated as such. There's plenty of things that we do that just require getting a message out there, and the quality of that does not need to be, but I think part of what maybe you were alluding to is you're thinking about creating thought leadership and you're thinking about creating a point of view, or, my pet peeve right now on LinkedIn is how many comments are totally AI generated, and you can tell it. And I'm I don't know what this accomplishes, because people are not clicking on your profile to say, gee whiz, what an intelligent person, I want to see who this is. Certainly you're not getting, so what is the point? And so I do think you need to be a little bit more thoughtful and say, just because I can do this, does it mean that I should do this?
I think that's a really good suggestion and point that you make, particularly around LinkedIn, but life in general. We still need to hear from Shama. We don't want to hear from Shama's AI bot, right?
Yeah, I think your POV matters so much more in this world where we are now going to go from spam to spoof, where it's just too much stuff, slop, just content on content. And Pinterest is facing this because so many people have just created AI images and flooded the site. And so what happens when you just have a jumble of things out there? I think that point of view becomes really important.
I've only got one more question to go, so we're getting so close. Okay, for a fitness business leader listening today, what's one action that they can take this week to start future-proofing their leadership or their business, their human interaction with their staff in this AI world, Shama?
Yeah, so I would say, do the 24-hour challenge. This is what I threw the gauntlet down even for the HFA attendees here. And the 24-hour challenge is basically that rather than use search engines, you turn to AI to solve some of your challenges. And you do it for 24 hours. And so I know earlier we were talking about, using AI for very basic things like how many teaspoons in a tablespoon is not its ideal. And that is true. But I think part of it is just getting started and seeing how much more powerful it can be. And what I find is when people do the 24-hour challenge, they don't want to go back. It does open their eyes to really what's available to them. So I would say take that challenge, do it, and then, drop me a message on LinkedIn, drop me a message on Instagram, social. Let me know how it goes, because I collect these and I really love hearing what people's experiences are.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an honor to have Shama on the show, and I have to reinforce using that challenge. Well, I did both those challenges you just said, Shama. Number one is I did use ChatGPT for 24 hours instead of using Google. Loved it. Number two is I slid into your DMs on LinkedIn and Instagram, which is how we got you on the show. So I would challenge everybody to take up both those suggestions from Shama, and I guarantee you she will respond. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love making new friends. It's always fun. It's great to meet like-minded people, doing interesting things. So thanks so much for having me, JT.
You're awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Shama. And I have to say, I'm in the habit of using AI more and more for my operational tasks. And remember, everybody, we also interviewed Dr. Ted Vicky on AI for fitness pros. And there's a link in the show notes. So it's time to get after AI, FBP community. This episode's Rex Roundtable's trusted suppliers for you to support as they support us are Power Systems, your one-stop shop for equipment, functional training, recovery, and storage. Les Mills, offering group fitness classes and solutions. Instinctive Insights, profit-driven marketing using data science. HireBob.ai, sell memberships, service existing customers, and provide motivational fitness support with AI. Alico, supplying premium strength training equipment. Here's a stat Shama dropped that really made me think. Most people consume content publicly, but they share it privately, usually with just 3 people. So if you're obsessing over likes or comments on your socials, well, you might actually be looking at the wrong numbers. Instead, check your sharing stats because that's where the magic happens. Speaking of which, how about sharing this episode with 3 of your colleagues right now? Just quietly hit that share button and I'd really appreciate it. Coming up in our next episode, it's a dead set classic. We're going to be joined by Brian Keane. He's from Ireland, and yes, the accent is fantastic. But even better, he delivers absolute gold on how to stand out as a personal trainer. Whether you're a PT in a gym, whether you're running your own PT business, whether you're training people in the park, how to stand out as a PT. Don't forget, every resource mentioned in every episode is always listed in our show notes. Seriously, some of the best show notes in the podcast world. And I know because I put them together to make your life easier. You can grab them at patreon.com/fitnessbusinesspodcast or fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. What we leave behind is not set in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.